Welcome back to Fallen Angel Spirits. Today we're going over the pumpkin mash. We got it all distilled, and I'm going to show you a few things that I was doing on that. Unfortunately, my ability to make sure the camera's running or my mic is running, it don't work out so well. I'm still learning on that. So I did a lot of filming and a lot of not filming, and we're going to have to redo this about 4 days later. I did manage to get some good parts, and we're going to put some clips in here. So one of the first things we're going to show, pulling the mash out of the bucket, getting it ready to put in the still. You are going to see I'm using a pump on this one. Now, as I was pulling it out, it's pretty clear. All the mash is on the bottom the way it should be. And I don't normally like to put a lot of the mash into the still. This time though, the mash was quite thin. The pumpkin was very mushy, so I decided to go ahead and put some of that into the still on the big still. Did take a little while. You will notice at the bottom of the pump there that it's coming out pretty clear. You'll see every now and then where it gets real murky. That's some of the mash coming through. I didn't decide to actually put some of the mash in until at the end of pumping all that out. And the reason I did this is I thought that would give it a lot more flavor in the end. I do personally think that, yes, it did help. Here I'm showing you the big still that I run. Unfortunately, I'm at a loss for words. I'm trying to remember. I'm taking the stripping runs. I'm terrible at remembering things. It just comes to me later. It all gets jumbled up in my head for some reason when I want to speak. But I'm running my stripping runs. I'm showing you the PID. I got it set at 190. That's the top temp that I really wanted to run at. I don't want it to run any hotter than that. And it's just heating up. 170, I'm starting to get the stripping runs out of that. Now, I'm not pulling any 4 shots off at this time. I don't want to do that until my final run. I just want to pull off as much alcohol as I possibly can to just the beginning of this. That one's a little bit later. That one's a little later. Sorry, I got a bit of a sore throat today. So on my first run, obviously I had everything on top. I did run with 2 of these, 2 sight glasses. I only had one with a bubble plate in it. That helps. I don't know the proper way it works, but when I can figure this one out a little better, I'll give more detail, or maybe I'll show you a couple of internet sites that explain this quite well. Basically, it's almost double distilling when you're using a bubble plate. If you had more than one, say I had 2 of them, you'd be triple distilling. So I did run that in the main stripping run. From there, we got all that pulled off, and we decided to go into, well, I didn't decide, I just did. I went into my next runs, where I'm going to start pulling off the heads and pulling off all my cuts. So I don't do it the way a lot of people do it. They'll have a bunch of small jars. Do I have one handy? Jar similar to this size. And they'll pull off a whole bunch of runs. Now, I knew I wasn't going to get a lot off of this, which basically this is what I got. So what I did, and what I normally do, is I just have a spoon that I just take a little bit, take samples every so often. For the heads, Well, the 4 shots, I pulled that off right away. The heads, I waited a while for that, and wasn't much for heads. And then I got into the hearts, and I sampled this all the way through with the spoon. Normally, what most people will do is they'll have a whole bunch of glass jars set up, and then they start sampling that, and they'll pull what they call their heads, what they call their hearts, what they call the tails, and they'll get them all separated, and they keep their hearts. Well, I do this just by sampling it through. When I start getting into the tails, I stop the run. I don't really like to pull anything else off unless I want to keep the tails for another run. Can always keep the tails too, or run the tails, because you can find some flavors way down in those tails. A lot of times flavors you want to mix into your final run or what you're keeping. So I didn't do that on this one. Now you are going to see here, I'm using, on the final runs, I'm using a gin bag, basket, whatever you want to call it. So all I did with this, to shove it into the sight glass, pull it around the edges. When you put your gasket on here, that will seal. You just got to make sure it's nice and tight so nothing leaks out. And get something that looks a little bit like that. So what I put into my gin basket, I had some nutmeg in there, I had some cinnamon. I did use ground nutmeg, I used cinnamon sticks, put a little bit of ginger in there. I used powdered ginger this time on this run. It's just a little easier. Had a long day, quite tired, which we will see when it comes to the end of this. This does take a whole day to run, and I was pretty tired by the end. So well, anyways, I put some vanilla in there too. I'm pretty sure that's everything that I had in it, and I'll show you that here. Yeah, as you can see here, got the bubble plate going, which is doing a double distill. I did this on both the stripping run and this run. You can also see where this gin basket's doing the job. It's got a nice drip coming out, so it's forcing all of that, all those, close that. It's forcing all of the vapors, everything that's going through there. It's forcing it up through it and creating more flavor that's going to go out into the end. I could do an infusion where I would just soak it in later on after it was all done, but I've never done this and I wanted to try it. I think it turned out pretty good. I'm going to definitely do this more often. And here you see where I'm actually collecting the hearts on this part. To the far side, that was the 4 shots that I pulled off. There was very little 4 shots on that. The second jar, I only pulled off about this much. In the first jar, it was at 90% alcohol. The second jar, it was down to, trying to remember, I think that was down to 40% alcohol, if I remember right. And I did take a little bit of that and put into this jar. I like the flavor that come out on that. So in the end, and these are some of the clips that I did manage to get, not screw up on. So here, this is later in the evening. This is where I'm really getting tired, showing you how much I pulled off. And I did a little bit of a taste test on this one. It come out quite strong in cinnamon. Could taste a little bit of the nutmeg. Definitely tasted pumpkin in this. Very surprised. I was unsure how all this was going to turn out. I thought it turned out extremely well. Yeah, here you see me getting ready. No, that jar I just showed you had distilled water in it. I was cutting or proofing down what I was going to taste. I don't want to taste it straight off because it could burn. I have a little burning sensation on the tongue. That can blow my palate right away, and then I can't really taste anything. So I cut it down, and this is where I'm getting some of the flavors. I was smelling it a little bit too. Wanted to see what I could smell, and I could definitely smell the cinnamon in it, a little bit of the nutmeg, and a hint of the pumpkin. It wasn't until I tasted it where I could taste the pumpkin. My dog's curious on what I'm doing as well. So in the end, I was quite pleased with it. For the first time doing something like this, didn't know how it was going to turn out, and it turned out exceptionally well. It could have been a little bit stronger, I think, in pumpkin, but you know, everything we do, it's trial and error. That's why we do this. I want to see how things work out. If it don't work out, it don't work out. We move on to the next thing. But we are going to do another taste test. So this has been sitting with oak in it for 4 days now. That's why it's a little darker. I wanted to age this a little bit. But I'm kind of curious. Normally I'd wait about 10 days before I do a sampling, but I wanted to get this video out for you. So we're going to do a sampling at 4 days. Everything has had a chance to really kind of come together as far as what come out of the still. I don't know how it's going to be with the oak flavors. Like I said, normally I'd wait at least 10 days, but I'm impatient. I want to know how it comes out. I do have distilled water in this one again. And what we're sampling right now is at 87%. I want to try to get it down to about 40% alcohol. Let that sit for a little bit. There is something going on outside here. I am waiting for a UPS package. I'll be right back with you. Okay, I'm back. UPS was out here and they brought me a couple packages I've been waiting on. We'll come back to this because I'm kind of excited about these. One of the items I got, pH tester. We're going to be going over this in the near future too. Checking your pH on your mashes. Good thing to do, and we'll explain a little bit about that when we get to that. But this is I like this a whole lot better than those pH strips. Easier to work with. The other thing that came, Turbo Clear. Well, let's try that side. Turbo Clear. This is something that's going to help clear your mash once it's done fermenting. Going to take all that stuff that's in your mash, that's all mixed up in there, kind of murky looking. It's going to take it all to the bottom, then you can pull off all of the stuff off the top. I've heard mixed results on this. Some people say that it will take flavors out. Others say it doesn't take flavors out at all. The ones that are saying that it takes flavors out, I can't disregard what they say. If they think that it does, that it does. Some pretty reputable people are telling me, or what I'm hearing is that it doesn't take flavors out. So we're going to find out again for another show. But I'm pretty excited about those. I had to show you why we're doing this. So back to this one. A little bit of tasting going on here. It's had plenty of time to sit and really come together. It's interesting. Can definitely smell the pumpkin in it now. It really come together a lot stronger than it was the first time I tested it. The cinnamon is calmed way down. smelling more ginger in it now. A lot of fruit flavors. Can't pinpoint that fruit flavor though. Almost like mango. And then I definitely could smell a hint of the smoke on that. Almost like, how would I describe that? It's not a bad smoke. It's definitely a good smoke. It's an in-between of, you got a fire going in the yard and you're all sitting around enjoying it, to you're grilling up steaks. It's almost like right in between the two. A very good smell, not overbearing. It's not an old rotting wood smell. It's got some good caramelization going on in this smell, where you would get that in your grilling, as long as you're using a smoke flavor in your grilling. Very interesting. Let's give it a try. Definitely it's very smooth. I know everybody hates that word. Doesn't burn. Can taste the smoke. It's got a peppery, kind of a peppery note on the back end of it. At first, the first things I taste, definitely pumpkin. Not strong, just a hint of it. Cinnamon is standing out, really standing out on this. Can hint of the nutmeg, but I don't really taste the ginger. Can smell the ginger, I just can't taste it. That might come out later. I really like what the oak is doing for it though. It's really giving some nice caramel. How would I just, it's like a caramel roll caramel where it's been put in the oven and you got your cinnamons and your brown sugars all coming together and creating that caramel in a caramel roll. It's that kind of caramel going on. Really like that. Can't wait to see how this turns out later on. I'm going to let this age. I think I'm going to check this one. Every 2 weeks I'm going to check this one. I don't really want to force a long-term age on this one because I'm not going for that. I'm just wanting to put a few flavors into it. And I think this oak is really going to give it some, I think it's going to give it a lot more caramel flavor, which I think adds to this pumpkin mash. Very impressed. Later on it might actually just go away and we'll have some flavors we don't like. I don't know. So that's everything we have today. I hope you enjoyed this video. I do apologize. I am getting better with filming. I'm not the best. I forget things a lot. I have a tendency to forget to turn my mic on. This time I happened to forget to turn on the camera on a major part, and the mic was on. Made sure of that. But that's trial and error. I'll make mistakes. I don't care. That's all the fun of this. So, a few other things I wanted to go over. Become a Patreon. That will help me out. You will find that in my description box below. I want you to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and share this. The more people that see this, the more it helps me out. As always, have a nice day. See you next time.